The dusty wind of Sagebrush Hollow carried whispers that morning, low murmurs of judgment, curiosity, and cruel laughter. The small frontier town, tucked between golden plains and silent hills, had gathered around the wooden post in the square. There, under the harsh noon sun, a girl was tied with coarse rope, her wrists bruised and bleeding, her face hidden behind tangled strands of hair. Her torn dress flapped against her legs, dusty and dull, yet even in shame, her frail dignity seemed to shine through. Her name was Clara May, though most in town spat it with disgust, that thief girl, the preacher's shame, the one who ran. No one cared to hear her side of the story. The town's law was simple, punishment before truth, especially for a girl without family or favor. They said she'd stolen bread from the storehouse and money from the preacher's wife. But in truth, she'd only taken a loaf to feed the orphan boy who slept under the bridge, the same boy who now watched her with wide, fearful eyes from the crowd. "Please, let me go," she whispered, voice trembling, eyes fixed on the dust at her feet. But no one moved. Laughter answered her, until a shadow fell across her face. A tall man stepped forward, the kind who drew quiet from the loudest rooms. He wore a weathered hat and a long brown coat stained from work, not vanity. His boots thudded heavy on the wooden planks as he pushed through the crowd. His name was Elijah Boone, a cattleman who lived far from town, known for his silence, his scars, and a heart that no one had ever managed to read. He stopped before her. "Who tied her?" His voice was calm, but there was a weight in it that made the sheriff straighten his shoulders. "Town order, Boone," the sheriff said, chewing his tobacco. "Girl's a thief. Needs to learn." Elijah's dark eyes moved from the sheriff to the trembling girl. He saw the rope biting into her wrists, the tears drying on her cheeks. He saw not a thief, but a child of hunger and fear. Without a word, he pulled a knife from his belt, stepped close, and cut the rope. The crowd gasped. Clara's knees gave way, and Elijah caught her before she hit the ground. "You can't just take her," the sheriff barked. "I just did," Elijah said, voice even, eyes cold as iron. "If she's to pay for something, she'll work it off on my land. If not, I'll see to her myself." No one dared argue. Boone was not a man they crossed. He lifted her like she weighed nothing and carried her through the crowd. The orphan boy smiled faintly through tears, watching as the man on horseback rode away, the girl clinging weakly to him, dust rising behind them like a promise of something new. For days, Clara barely spoke. Elijah gave her food, water, and space. She slept in the spare cabin, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of hay and pine. She didn't trust kindness, it always came with a price. But Boone didn't ask anything of her. He worked quietly, mending fences, feeding horses, and every evening he left a plate of food by her door without a word. On the third night, as the sun bled red over the hills, Clara came out, holding the empty plate in trembling hands. "Why'd you help me?" she asked softly. "People don't do that." Elijah looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it either." She didn't ask more. She just stood there, feeling something she hadn't in years, safe. Weeks passed. She began to help in the kitchen, then with the horses. She was clumsy at first, afraid of breaking things, afraid of doing wrong, but Elijah's patience never wavered. When she cut her hand on a horseshoe, he washed the wound gently, his touch rough but kind. "Pain reminds us we're still alive," he murmured, wrapping her hand. "But what we do next, that's what matters." One morning, he found her crying behind the barn. In her hands was a crumpled piece of paper, the town's notice calling her a thief. "They'll never let me live it down," she said bitterly. "Even if I do good, they'll still see me as dirt." He leaned against the post beside her. "Then stop trying to prove them wrong. Live so the truth speaks louder than their words." Her gaze lifted to him then, full of wonder and confusion. No man had ever spoken to her like that, not like she was broken, but like she was strong. The days grew longer, the air softer. Spring turned the ranch golden green. Slowly, Clara's laughter returned, light as a bell in the wind. She found joy in small things, the way the foal nuzzled her palm, the sound of the creek at night, the way Elijah's quiet company filled the silence without demanding anything in return. But peace, in the Wild West, never lasted long. One afternoon, as Elijah rode into town for supplies, Clara followed at a distance, hidden under a shawl. She wanted to prove she could face them. But when she entered the square, whispers began again. That's her, someone hissed. Boone's stray stones of words, sharper than knives, struck her from every side. Then the preacher's wife stepped forward, her eyes cold. You dare show your face? She sneered. Thieves don't change. Something broke inside Clara. I never stole from you, she said, voice shaking. I took bread for a starving boy. That's not theft, it's mercy. The woman slapped her. Before Clara could fall, a firm hand caught her. Elijah. He'd seen everything. His jaw tightened as he turned to the crowd. You call this justice? He thundered. You starve your poor, then punish those who feed them. His voice rolled like thunder through the square. If she's a thief, then brand me one too. 'Cause I do the same damn thing. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. The preacher's wife turned away, face pale. No one dared speak. Elijah took Clara's hand, openly, unashamed, and led her out of town once more. Back at the ranch, as the sky flamed with sunset, Clara sat by the porch, tears streaking her cheeks. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. Now they'll hate you too. Elijah looked out over the hills, eyes far away. Let him. I stopped living for other folks' approval long ago. Then, after a long pause, he turned to her. Clara, do you want to stay here? Not as debt or pity, but because you choose to. Her breath caught. Stay. He nodded slowly. This land's lonely. Could use someone who sees the world the way you do. Someone who still believes mercy's worth the price. Clara looked at him, tears trembling at her lashes. For years, she'd begged for freedom, for a place to belong. And now, for the first time, someone wasn't offering chains disguised as kindness, but choice. She whispered, yes, I'll stay. He smiled faintly, just a flicker, and tipped his hat. Then welcome home. From that day, the town of Sagebrush Hollow told many tales, some cruel, some kind. But none could deny what they saw. A girl once shamed, walking beside a cowboy who'd once sworn never to care again. Together they worked the land, quiet and steadfast, until the whispers faded into wind. And though she had once cried, please, let me go, Clara May would one day look at the man who freed her and say softly, thank you for not letting me.